Recording. So I am Sharon Salzman. I work at the Kentucky Department of Education, and I will serve as your host for this session, which is Building School-Wide Behavior Systems with our presenter, Dr. Kara Ammerman. Kara, I'll let you take it away.
All right, I was trying to find that unmute button. Of course, it wasn't cooperating with me. So yes, hi, I am Kara Ammerman. I actually am currently now the proud principal at a new middle school being built in Jefferson County Public Schools. I was the former principal as of yesterday was my last day at Crosby Middle School. So definitely still proud of the work and philosophies that we put in place there at Crosby Middle School. But this is just a bit.ly that you can have access to the presentation should you need it. I know also it's embedded in the resources that are provided. So we will get going. The first thing that I want to show you so that you have an idea of the school that I'm referencing, but the practices span over several schools that I have worked at, but I just want to set the stage. If the sound doesn't work, that's okay. It's just like background music. So it's just a short video that we'll start the presentation off with. All right, so here we go. So you can kind of just see what my school was about, the students that we serve. Talking to you, like, what is my background? So I'm originally from Lexington, Kentucky, moved to Louisville, played volleyball at Louisville, and loved it so much that I started my teaching career in a high school as a PE and health teacher, and then gradually moved my way into roles that then set me up to eventually be a principal. I served Crosby for 4 years, and the next pieces of information that I want to talk about is, what drives me. So when I use the word winner, I equate that to everyone has a talent, and as a leader, how are you going to bring that out? And so a lot of times, there's a quote out there that I've read that, we hire our staff members for all of their positives, but then we evaluate them for their negatives, and we forget the positives of why we're bringing them on board. The other thing is the ability to make people want what they need. So some people use the term manipulation or things like that. That's not how I view it. I view it as, if we got into education because we love kids, so you need to love kids, and you need to really feel that way because that is your clientele. That is who you're trying to get your content, which you may also love, to. And so making them understand, making students and staff understand the purpose of why we're in this building. So the next thing is, or the last thing is, I'm going to be on your case, but on your side. So a lot of behavior management skills or PBIS or all of those things, which I'm going to be referencing, I make it very clear to my staff that we're not lowering our expectations because we're not being punitive. It's because if punitive worked, then we wouldn't even be having any of these conversations, and I would probably be a millionaire somewhere, on a beach. And so what it means is truly making students accountable, and doesn't mean that you have to say, oh, I really need you to. I think sometimes our mindset shifts when we feel like we're not making students accountable. So my purpose of this presentation and what I'm hoping that you get out of this is just taking you through my journey of turning a school's mindset of really collectively school-wide raising our expectations, cutting off the exit ramps. So there's just one highway and it's Crosby Highway, and you're just going to be driving in circles because we're not going to open up exit ramps where you can escape those expectations, because all the adults are going to be on the same page and I'll reference calling people up, not calling them out. I'm going to call you up to make sure that you're supporting me just like I'm trying to support you as an adult, right? Because as adults, we have to be on the same page before we expect students to be able to follow those consistent behavior expectations. And the next thing is just creating a safe space and opening windows for those confrontational conversations, or however you want to phrase them, the difficult conversations that you have to have as a leader in order to make sure that, again, you're all on the same page and that you are supporting teachers, and not necessarily when you call people up or have those difficult conversations, doesn't mean that you're not leaving them with their dignity, right? Because the solution should be, this is what we all need to do. And then also just like focusing on your own personal capacity of, my personality is different than, many people's personality. You have to own who you are as a leader and really be comfortable with that, because then you're going to be able to stand on 2 feet and be able to move or make a shift, be consistent with these high expectations. So it starts with the adults, but translates to the students once you have everyone on the same page. So the next thing that I want to just go ahead and give you data to support why I'm so passionate about this. So when I entered the scene at Crosby, our comprehensive school data, survey data, which is completed, district-wide, the sense of belonging for our students of color was not awesome. I would rather go to Crosby than any other school. You can see there, males, it was 44%, African-American females, it was 30%. Our white population, it was 80% or higher. So then fast forward to 2020, we're going through a pandemic and returning from a pandemic, and we jumped to 63% for African-American males and 58% for African-American females. So how did that happen? I can tell you it wasn't because we lowered our expectations. Our behavior and discipline improved, but there was still behavior and discipline. There were still consequences. But because we were consistent on how we scaffold that, how we consistently implemented that, it was clear that everyone in our school was going to be held to the same expectation of, this is what we do when we're in Crosby's building. So I just wanted to highlight that, just because that was a huge eye-opening experience for our staff to understand that not everybody wants to go to our school. And in the dynamic at the time of how our districting of how students got to us was, that's not okay with me, and that shouldn't be okay with us. We should want every kid, and I know we're talking about middle schoolers, so you never know what kind of personality you're going to get, but you should want every kid to be in your building. And so that means, it doesn't mean lowering one population to raise the other population. Keep doing the great stuff, because clearly our white students are loving it. We are doing great. We are reaching them. How can we do the same for our students of color to have the same perception of school? So in 2021-22, we did another survey with our students, because we want to offer that voice to them to really give us feedback, because that's why we're showing up each day, is to reach you, the child. The survey, I feel like I belong at Crosby, out of 719 responses. So we have about 1,000 kids, all students. So it didn't break it down by subgroups. 96.7 said that they strongly agree that they belong at Crosby. So how, again, I'm getting to how we did that through behavior expectations and being consistent as a staff. So this next piece is just like your branding, your yes, so I'm going to refer to PBIS. It's awesome to have, and you saw our ROAR expectation sign briefly, and ROAR all stands for something. Every school pretty much has something similar. My belief on this is that you can have the pretty signs and you can have it posted, but are you referring to it? And so when I rebranded our school in the sense of what is on those signs, it cannot be dissertations. It needs to be to the point, quick, So that one, we are eliminating the power struggle. We cannot set ourselves up as adults to be, I'm right, you're wrong to the students. Like, it just can't happen. And I'm having these very direct, honest conversations with my staff that if that is your goal, your solution is never going to happen. That kid is not going to be really pumped up to come back to your class if that's what they're going to be confronted with each day. Instead, if you're using the classroom expectations, if you're using the language that we all have agreed on, so majority rules in the sense of it doesn't have to be 100% consensus, but I'm going to ask for feedback. I'm going to do this with you. It's not going to be Tara Ammerman's rules. It's going to be, here's what I'm thinking. What do you as teachers believe that you can hold consistently? So again, the majority of teachers say, we feel good on this, then everybody needs to respect that and be able to follow through with it. So then we're all getting the same goal. So again, what I'm getting to is that instead of it being me against you, child, it's this is what we do right now. This is the behavior that you're not demonstrating in so many words. I need you in my class, but if you can't fix this, then you are choosing to remove yourself from class, not me. And when I call home, I'm going to let whoever I'm speaking to know that this is how many things I did to try to keep you in the classroom. And ultimately, you make the decision, then continue the behavior after several chances. And that is why you're out. So we're no longer saying, get out of my classroom, or making the call, this student has to get out. It's all in the language that you use. Don't you take ownership of that, because that's a different conversation with the kid and with the parent. And I've experienced those, because the kid can no longer say, well, she told me to get out. No, if you don't even say those words, because they'll remember those words 3 months later and still think that you don't want them in their classroom. And again, and it's not saying now, I need you to really work on, you don't have to do that. You can still be stern and direct and be able to say, like, again, as a school, this is what we are doing, and this is what you are showing me. And if you cannot do A, B, and C, then this is going to be the result because of your choices, not mine, because I need you in my class. So the more and more that I modeled and started to get administrators, teachers, and like just taking the risk of trying it, and it cannot be, it's the worst case scenario, it cannot be passive aggressive, because kids will read right through that. So there's no faking this. Because at the end of the day, we're not going to get all the things we want with academic achievement, with behavior decreasing, and having kids in the room if we're not collectively buying in and using this language. And so it takes time. And so I will say, prior to the pandemic, it was about 1.5 years in that I started to really see a shift. And I could see where students didn't have the argument anymore because we eliminated the emotion of the power struggle. So moving right along, again, I'm just going to briefly touch on our mission and vision. So I did not follow all of the classes I took to be a leader. I did not do this my first year. I did not feel like I felt like I was being thrown into the fire, as many new principals feel like. And so it wasn't until year 3 that I really sat down with our mission and vision and said, guys, what are we trying to do? And really, at the end of the day, you can see in our mission, build a strong sense of belonging. And then in our vision, make sure that we're setting our students up to be lifelong learners. And so, to be honest, I have a little bit of PTSD with doing like mission, vision, core belief, like committees, because if someone's word gets cut out, then they're done. They don't want to listen anymore. And so how I went about this so that it was productive, still had stakeholder like feedback, because this is not about me. This is our school. This isn't, I may be accountable ultimately for our school, but like, again, I want to do this with you, not to you. And so what I did is I started with our admin retreat, and I just said, I used all the tools and strategies of how you get brainstorming. So all those wonderful strategies that we use with our students, I used with our team of What do we want our school to be about? What comes to mind? Then we drafted a mission, vision, core values, and motto. And then from there, we took it to our teacher leaders. I said, here's what we've drafted as a starting point. By no means do we have to keep this. It's just to start on, what do you like? What do you not like? Is there words you want or not want? And so then they were able to make adjustments and tweak. And then they took this and they presented it to our staff. So then it wasn't like starting from ground zero, only having one committee have a voice. It was really a structured process so that this actually means something. And so with the core values and motto, actually, those two things happened when I was hired, because as a person, I told my students and staff that I will communicate. I'm a collaborator. I like to work with people. So I'm a collaborator. I want to be consistent, as you have heard me use that word already a ton. And I want to celebrate you when you need to be celebrated. And we're going to be all in all the time. I want your effort. So that doesn't mean that we're always going to succeed. That doesn't mean that it's always going to be what we need it to be. But goodness, we are going to give it our best effort. And that's all I can ask. Just try. That's all I need you to do, because before you know it, you are going to get to that finish line. So I just think it's important to talk through a lot of things that we get, as leaders, we get so much stuff that we forget the basics. Like going back to the basics and being great at those foundational things that we need to do as leaders. So again, this is just an overview of what we offer. So we have, AP program for academics. We have, 19 plus sports that we offer. We're kind of a mini high school. We have 16 different clubs that our students can join. And here's what I'm going to say about that. Well, I get the question, well, how did you incentivize that? Because I realized we're in a teacher shortage. I realize that giving extra time is precious. And I also am not going to abuse the time that my staff or volunteers want to give to my school. So what I will say is that, yes, money is nice. And I always try to find something. It's not, as much as they deserve. But what I do is I say, if you do this, I am not going to say that every single club has to meet once a week after school, like everything has to be the same. If you are volunteering / I'm trying to compensate you something for giving me your time for our students, I'm going to empower you as a professional and respect that you can meet online if you want to. You can meet once a month. You can meet every week if you'd like to. But I'm going to respect your time. I'm going to make sure that if you volunteer for something or sign up to lead something, that then that doesn't turn into, will you do this now? Will you do this now? And so I try to organize myself so that I respect how much everyone has on their plate. I make sure that I'm giving them some sort of monetary compensation. And then I'm also letting them be professionals. Like, how much do you think? Like, we have a baking club. It meets once a month. It's our most popular club. The kids love it. They love to sign on. And so how does this go back to behavior and expectations and holding high, getting your kids involved in a way that it's not one size fit all. But again, in order for it to get to the kids, you have to start with your adults. And so they have to see that you're going to follow through with what you say, that you're going to respect them, that you're going to value them. And that all looks different depending on who you're talking to or who the teacher is. But it wasn't by accident that teachers started volunteering for things, and teachers wanted to get involved because they started to see the relationships they were building, other teachers who were doing stuff, how they could get kids on their side, but it didn't have to be every single night for 2 hours or even weekly, because we all have families. I respect that. And so I just like to kind of show you how it all benefits that behavior, expectation, and high levels of learning starts with all these small little pieces done in a very intentional way. So again, I've already talked about those things that about our clubs and things of that nature. So our issue when I started at Crosby was, again, our behavior showed that our students of color did not feel like they belong in our building. So in Jefferson County Public School, we are very fortunate to have a department, diversity, equity, poverty, that offers resources, that offers trainings, that offers things to support schools if you want to. So you don't have to, but I knew I needed to, one, educate myself on, okay, if this is what my data is saying, where do I start? Like, how do I just magically figure out how to increase this sense of belonging? And so I started with 2 speakers that I was exposed to through a speaker series myself. Because if I'm going to bring them to my staff, then I'm going to have already seen them. I'm a firm believer in that. I'm not just going to go off someone's word always, because I want to make sure it's the right fit. So what these 2 colleagues did was they brought education of what might be missing based on our data. But the second, Dr. Ideen, she actually agreed. I said, I don't really want you presenting to my staff. I want you to meet with my kids. I want you to meet with my girls of color, because that's my lowest subgroup. I want to know the why. I have the number, 40%. Why? Why is that? And so long story short, she, we got parent permission, all those things. We did it ethically before going forward. And she was able to, summarize the data and give me the information. And when I was able to give this to staff, I mean, I can remember it like it was yesterday, because their faces were just in shock, because we weren't doing these things maliciously. It was just, we weren't aware that this is what's causing the divide. So it was saying my name correctly. Don't just give me a nickname just because it's easier for you. It's okay if you mess up, because I know you're human, but like, I want you to learn my name, and I believe that you can do it. Even if you mess it up every single time, as long as I know that you're trying, that means more to me than you just dismissing it because you might be uncomfortable. Really asking about like what I enjoy. It may be different than what you're familiar with, but like, really sorry, the room I'm in, the lights keep turning on and off. This is not my office. But like, really genuinely wanting to learn like what I do outside of school, or asking me about my day. And so these are all things that my teachers are like, oh my gosh, like, they're right. I'm nervous, I'm uncomfortable because I don't want to offend anyone. And so now I'm making them feel invisible because I'm just ignoring it, because I'm just not sure where to start. And so to have those examples from our students, not from a research study or outside of our belt, was so important, so that we could all be on the same page with actionable steps that we could absolutely do, so that all of our students feel seen and cared about and valued, right? So that was the first step. The next thing I will talk about is eliminating those power struggles and barriers. So I'm a big believer of using school data and your experiences as a leader that can speak to your staff. So when I was talking about, either microaggressions or implicit bias, I said, guys, this is not me or anybody but me, because I'm the one speaking to you, calling you a racist. That's not what I'm saying right now. What I'm saying is that an implicit bias that I can give you an example of at Crosby Middle School when I was in the hallway is I'm monitoring the hall, and there is a group of girls that are coming around the corner. They're being loud, and I'm kind of like, what's going on? And they're a group of my girls of color, and they're coming around the corner and they're being loud. But then I'm like, hey, can you guys just like take it down a level? They do. And then I just keep watching, and I'm like, why am I keep watching? Like, they're just laughing being teenagers. Like, they weren't doing anything wrong, but I'm just watching. So I tell myself, stop, like, they're good. They're doing what they need to do. They followed my like direction. And I turn And I just so happened to see a locker open, which isn't supposed to be open during this time. And it just so happens to be 2 kids that are white, and they're actually exchanging things they should not be exchanging in a school building. And if I would not have stopped myself from just like waiting for something to happen after I clearly had checked out and done everything I needed to, I would have never have seen that. Or another example of just a power struggle is students in TikTok. Woo, Lord. We have a busy transition in the cafeteria, and I have a group of girls that are doing a TikTok. And I'm like, oh my goodness. So I'm walking over and they're like, oh my gosh, here she comes. I'm like, here I come. You're right. Here I come. And I said, hey, time out, but just time out, because they're ready to defend themselves and justify. I said, you are not in trouble. Right now, all I need you to hear is this is not the best time to be doing this. So I just need you to stop. We're not going to get in an argument. I just need you to keep it moving. And then I walk away instead of standing there and wait, like creating almost a power struggle. I'm giving them an opportunity to A, hear what I've said, and B, then do something with that information. And I know that I have 1 minute. I need to wrap it up. Man, sorry, this went quick. So what I'll say is, guess what? They did it again. They did not learn just one time. But instead of me having to go all the way over there, all I had to do was look and be like, come on, I thought you, and they're like, oh, I'm sorry. And they fixed it. And so I hope, again, that I've been able to give you just strategies of conversations. This is nothing new, and I realize that, but I think it's how you intentionally hold adults accountable for the language they use with children when it comes to discipline at the end of the day. And so I hope I've given you plenty of examples. I am happy to be supportive because I know I didn't get to everything, and I apologize for that, but I do appreciate you guys coming to my session, and I'm always open to feedback. In this presentation is my email at the very end. And again, I'm happy to be a resource because I certainly have had plenty of people who have helped me be successful. So that is it. So I respect everyone's time.
Thank you, Kara.
Sorry, I did like time management. I should probably, brush up on that. But yeah, so there's all my information, my Twitter handle. That's my professional Twitter handle, where I'm pretty active. But thank you guys so much for using my session.